Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Rose's Randoms, and it's finally time for the finale of this book, The Only One Left by Riley Sager. So this is going to be chapters 37 through 44 and a little epilogue at the end. So I'm so excited to finally be finishing this. Not because I'm tired of it, obviously, but because I don't know, it was so intriguing to me. So also, I'll just go over a little bit of at the end of what I thought, I guess, didn't work and what other people thought, just because I know I've been praising this book so much. So yeah. So in chapter 37, Kit goes down to Miss Baker, who we know is not Miss Baker anymore. And she's like, "Hi, Lenora." And so Virginia is fine. And so it's revealed that Miss Baker is actually Lenora, and the person in the room that Kit has been taking care of this entire time is not Lenora, but that is Virginia. And I don't know about y'all, if you were reading this book, because obviously I can't go through every little tiny detail, but if you're reading this book and you're me, you missed key details. The biggest one being that she never said her sister's name in these letters that she would type out. She'd always just be like, "My sister." And so this also I guess this is also one of the realizations that Kit comes to, because it turns out that the whole time Virginia was never lying, right? When she told Kit information, like when she was like, "Oh yeah, I think, who is scaring me? It's my sister," right? Like, she didn't actually mean Virginia. Virginia never said Virginia. She always just said "my sister." And so, yeah, she was scared of her sister. She was scared of Lenora, who is her sister. She also, when Kit asked her, "Oh, who was in your room that night?" Virginia says Virginia, because she was the one in her room. She was the one maybe making noises. Like, she didn't lie. It was me. It was me, Virginia. She didn't lie about that. And then also when she's asked, "Oh, who used the typewriter that night?" When, Kit comes into her room and she sees something like the typewriter has been used. And she also asks her in that same breath, "And who was Mary afraid of?" Virginia says, "My sister," which is the truth. Mary was afraid of Lenora, and the person who used the typewriter that night, when it was typed out on the typewriter, "It's all your fault," it was Lenora. And so Virginia actually just never lied. She just never said, "Oh," she never lied. Like, she just always referred to, "Oh, my sister." And when it was necessary to say, "Oh, it was me," she would say her name. So I thought that was a very interesting little tidbit there. So it turns out that this has been going on for 54 years. That's a long time to be pretending to be another person. That's like, I don't know if I would be able to keep at that little charade. I mean, I guess if everyone else thinks that the other person is dead, you would be able to keep it up. But also, it's just like having people think that you were the one who did something and you're still alive. Like, I would be very bothered by that. Like, I don't know, but that's just me. So, it turns out that Lenora apparently found her parents dead. And when she called the police, she reported that 2 people had been murdered, which is really what she thought. But when she came off of the phone and she walked to the ballroom, she saw that Virginia was actually hanging, and she had tried to take her own life. And so the family physician actually declared Lenora brain dead. However, she did not stay brain dead. She only stayed that way for 6 months. And after that, she was brain dead no more. Lenora actually tells Kit that the reason that Virginia can't speak is because the hanging damaged her larynx. So when Lenora told Kit in the beginning that, you know, she had polio and strokes, and that's why she was unable to speak, that was obviously a lie. She actually was not able to speak because she damaged her larynx by what she tried to do to herself. Now, this is what Lenora is telling us, because this is according to Lenora. This is what Lenora knows, right? There is more revealed though. Because this book has twist after twist after twist. It's crazy. Lenora also tells Kit that Peter and herself, Peter the painter from earlier in the story, the guy that painted those portraits of the family, the two of them were actually in love. But after the murders, Peter dropped her like a hot potato, and so did a lot of the other servants, because they believe that she did murder her parents, which, you know, the evidence that's there and the evidence that's not kind of points to her if you're not really looking for it. So they all just dropped her, and that's why she ain't got no man, and that's why she ain't got no servants. So that's the reason for that. Lenora also says that the only reason that Archie stayed is because of Virginia. So all those times, like, we as readers are assuming, obviously we know now that, oh, Archie was speaking to Lenora. Archie is close with Lenora, right? You gotta remember that when it's revealed that Virginia is actually the woman, we kind of have to like recalibrate everything that we learned throughout the story, and it's, you know, realized by us, and also because Lenore just tells us, is that Archie and Virginia were actually best friends, and he only stayed out of devotion to Virginia. The reason that they were so close is because Virginia was so helpful and accepting of him being, you know, I guess because he was gay, and, you know, he says like earlier that he had to leave and he ran away, which is how he even ended up working at the mansion on Hope's End. So yeah, that's the backstory with Archie and Virginia. And the whole reason that she was even able to switch identities is because she paid off the family physician to do so. Like, I think she gave him money, and she also gave him like a bunch of cars, I think, for himself and his wife. And he was just like, okay, it's good. Like, you want Virginia to be dead? She's dead. And so that's what was done. And so he then advised her to go to Europe for a time, which I don't really understand why he advised her to go to Europe, but she went, and she lived her life for like 2 years. She got herself a little fiance who passed away, and we don't really know how. You know, and when she went to Europe, that's when she actually took on the image of being Miss Baker. And the Miss Baker thing kind of confuses me a little bit, because we know that Miss Baker was older than her. So I'm kind of confused on how she would have passed off being Miss Baker, especially like, okay, when she came back, like, did people in town not know how Miss Baker looked? Or like, that part doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't know if he told her to go to Europe so that like people could forget how Miss Baker looked. But it's like you wouldn't really forget how a person looked that much. Like, so her being Miss Baker thing kind of is a little bit confusing to me, because it doesn't appear that Miss Baker was cooped up in the house, or Lenora was cooped up in the house. So I just don't know how she was able to pass off as being Miss Baker. But yeah, that bothers me a little bit. We then see in a letter that Virginia was writing to Mary about how she started getting used to being called Lenora, because Lenora herself would start referring to her as Lenora daily. Like, hi Lenora, how are you Lenora? Are you ready for your bath Lenora? Do you want your breakfast Lenora? Are you ready for dinner Lenora? Like, she would just continuously call her Lenora, and at first Virginia was like, why are you calling me this? And she eventually just resigned herself to being called Lenora. Lenora then admits that she paid off Bernice because Bernice witnessed her holding the knife, and then that testimony would have like completely just put her in jail, and that's why she decided to pay her off. Kit also asked her, why are you so sure that Virginia tried to hang herself? And Lenora is like, because there was a chair there. But Lenora moved the chair because she thought it would be better off that people didn't know that Virginia tried to do that to herself, because then they would think that she tried to do that to herself because she murdered her parents. But then you put the blame on yourself. Like, it's the truth. Well, it's not the truth. So Virginia didn't really murder her parents, but it's like she was scheming to, though. Or she tried to at least kill her father. And it's like she definitely had more to do with it than you did. So like, why would you do that? Like, especially when you don't even really like your sister. That to me didn't make sense. So then in the letter, it's revealed that Virginia actually gave birth on the floor of the bedroom, and Miss Baker and Lenora came in to help her. And when she finally did give birth, her father comes in and he tells Lenora to take the baby. And Miss Baker is trying to convince him to like, no, you can't like take this baby from her. And Winston is like, we're not gonna have another bastard in this family, referring to Lenora, who is not his actual child, his biological child. And what happens is Miss Baker actually ends up taking the baby with her, and you know, she's like, when it's time and when Virginia can get away, I'm going to give her baby back. But this doesn't happen, because when Miss Baker finds out about the murders that took place, she decides that it's not a good idea for her to give back the baby, because, you know, Virginia's not alive. She decides that, oh, I'm gonna keep the child, which, like, I know that Lenora was young, but you're not even like giving her that option. You just decide that you're gonna keep the child. And I guess she could get away with it because no one knew that Virginia was pregnant. And then obviously Lenora said that Virginia was dead. So there's that. But I didn't like that aspect of it. Not on the writing part, but like on Miss Baker's part. Even though it's like, yeah, sure, you saved the kid, but like, you ain't even asked. And so I think this is what Virginia was referring to when she said that, oh, Miss Baker lied. She said she was gonna give me back my baby, but she didn't. But you know what Lenora was doing to you, so why would you think that that's the case? Like, I don't know if she thinks that Miss Baker knows she's alive still, but yeah, it's a little weird. So Kit then asks Lenora about Ricardo Mayhew and wonders why she doesn't think that he at least helped to commit the murders. Because, you know, because, you know, he was having an affair with Virginia. At least, you know, when we put Virginia in the shoes of who we thought was Lenora, that's what was happening. And so Lenora laughs and she's like, I never knew him, which goes back to what Detective Vic said earlier when they asked Lenora, oh, do you know who Ricardo Mayhew is? And she just says no, which, you know, I still stand by what I said. Like, she could be lying. Like, anyone could just be like, no, I don't know this person. But yeah, it goes back to that because she did not know Ricardo Mayhew, but for some reason, Bernice, when she saw her, she accused Ricardo of having an affair with Lenora. And so it is actually Lenora herself who Bernice thought that Ricardo was having an affair with, not Virginia. But Lenora didn't know Ricardo. She says, I barely ever saw him. And this is when Archie comes out because he was listening somewhere. And he's like, I know he didn't commit the murders because he was with me. Turns out the two of them were lovers. Okay. I don't really think that was a necessary plot to the story at all, but it's there. And, you know, they were lovers, and he knows that he was with Ricardo, so he couldn't have done it. And he's the one who Ricardo was having an affair with. So Bernice, when she was telling Kit this stuff at the nursing home, she was completely wrong about what was going on. Turns out she didn't really know. She thought she knew, but she didn't know. Up to the night of the murder, the affair, all of that, she didn't actually know for real. Also, the reason that Ricardo was never seen again is because he asked Archie to run away with him, and Archie was like, no, I did too much running. And so Ricardo just ended up just straight up leaving and never to be seen again. Left his wife, all of that. It was just like, damn, you really didn't care at all about your wife. Like not romantically, but just not on like a relationship. Like, he just didn't care about her. He just up and left. Like, yo. So it turns out that this Ricky who got Virginia pregnant was not Ricardo, but a completely different Ricky. And Kit, for some reason, is still confused as to why Lenora thinks that Virginia did it or knows that Virginia did it. And Lenora finally says, oh, it's because I saw her going downstairs with a knife in her hand. It's like, girl, why didn't you just say that before? Why we gotta go through all of this for you to just be like, oh, I saw her going downstairs with a knife. That's why. That is why. So then in her letter, Lenora speaks of how, you know, she was willing to do anything to get her baby back. And she left her room and grabbed a knife. And as she's walking, she hears Ricky and her father arguing in the billiard room. And Lenora catches her and asks her what she's doing, and Virginia doesn't respond. She keeps going, apparently. And so that's when Lenora's like, I don't think she killed our mom on purpose. I think it was probably the adrenaline and everything that was going on. And so after she finds out this, Kit goes to Virginia's room and she's like, I know you murdered your parents. And we also find out that Kit was actually supposedly guilty of leaving that pill bottle next to her mother. Now, she didn't actually and she's been denying it this whole time, which makes sense as to why she's been having all these negative dreams and stuff about it this whole time. I still stand by the fact that the detective was trash, right? He still didn't try to figure out stuff for real, you know? But yeah, she left the pill bottle by her mother on purpose because her mother was like, oh, just one more. But she kind of knew that her mom would probably take more than one. But I think deep down inside, she was like, I want to put you out of your misery. And so she just left them there. She then gets into her car to leave, but Carter is there and he's like, where are you going? She tells him to get in and he gets in. And as they're driving, Kit is telling him everything that's happened and he's surprised by it, obviously. But then it dawns on her, she's like, wait, You asked Mary for a blood sample and then she was dead, right? Because he wanted the blood sample to see if he was Lenora's grandson. Now we know Virginia's grandson. And she's like, what if that blood sample did reveal that you were not her grandson? And the reason you murdered Mary is because of that fact, and you wanted to inherit the estate, and that reveal would have messed everything up. And I'm thinking, I'm reading this and I'm like, that don't make no damn sense, because he needs proof that he's her grandson to inherit the estate. So how on earth is him destroying a blood sample that proves that he's not a grandson going to help him? It's not going to help or hurt him. It just doesn't matter. He will need proof regardless. Like, unless he was try and take somebody else's like blood to like, I don't know. Like that, I was trying to make sense of it while I was reading it, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that one, sir. And of course Carter denies this, but Kit is all hell-bent on accusing him. So she takes this corkscrew and she kind of like shoves it in his face, and she's like, get out the car. By this time she's near her house, and he eventually gets out the car because but he's like, you're wrong, but she throws the car into the driveway and runs into the house. He's chasing after her, but she shuts the door. She calls for her dad. Oh, by the way, I completely forgot. Earlier, before she left the mansion, she called her dad to tell him like, oh, I'm coming back. I have to tell you some things. And that's when, we find out that she had actually left the pill bottle and stuff. And so she comes back to her house, and she's calling for her dad, but he's not there. And as she's going into the room, she sees a suitcase that she recognizes. And like a piece of it, and she realizes, oh my gosh, and the suitcase has a blood sample in it. And it dawns on her that her father's name, Patrick, could also have the nickname Ricky. And so she realizes that it was her father and Virginia who had that baby together. And I'm like, yo, everything I said at the beginning, I'm like, everything is so connected here. And it is. Like, and to be honest with you, at first, I'm like, yo, this father, he's like a whatever character. But this just brought him back full circle. And I was like, what? She also realizes that at the beginning of the story, there was a woman in her house laughing, and she thought that, oh, her father had a new girlfriend. But she realizes that that wasn't a new girlfriend. That was actually Mary, who had came by to get a blood sample from him. I guess something to do with the baby. That part I also don't really understand, because like the son is not there. So if somebody could explain to me how that makes sense, that would be nice, because I didn't really get that. So back to the letter, we find out that Lenora had went to her mother, who was like laying in her bed, to tell her mother what Virginia had planned to do, because she figured Virginia was going to try and do something to the father. And so her mother gets her wits about her, and she comes, and as Virginia is about to go and stab her father, the mother goes and she stops her. She takes the knife from her, and the mom is the one who kills the father. And then after that, the two girls, Lenora and Virginia, leave the room. And then a little bit after that, we see the mother, and I think Ricky also leaves the room as well. And we see the mother then stumbling out, and we see that she has actually had a stab wound in herself. It's not clear whether she did that to herself or the dad or her husband did that to her, but she asks Ricky to finish her off. And out of pity and also anger, Ricky does finish her off, and he does murder the mother. Virginia, seeing this, is highly upset and yells at him to get out. And it's just like, I don't know if she's upset because he killed her mother, or if she's upset because he killed both of the parents. or she's just upset at him because she overheard that he was going to leave, because that's what the father was trying to do, trying to pay him off to go. Like, we don't really know, and we don't find out what exactly she was upset about, but she's upset, tells him to get out. And this is when she decides that I'm going to end my life because it's not worth living because of all that's going on, and I don't have my baby. Yeah, I know. So Kit drives back to Hope's End, and she sees Archie, who tells her that somebody is already in the house. And she's like, yeah, I know, it's my father. He's Ricky. And Archie's like, what? But ain't no time to explain stuff. She tells Archie to take her car, go drive to Detective Vic. By the way, Detective Vic never shows up after this, is never mentioned after this, which really annoys me, because this whole time he was getting on my last nerve. And when everything is figured out, he just not there no more. Like, come on. So anyways, Archie drives off, and I don't know how this is possible, but Archie said that the dad was there. But then she goes in the house, and she's somehow in the house before him. I don't know if he was looking around. But he knows where Virginia's room is. Like, even Kit says she knows that, because obviously, like, he used to go inside the house. Anywho, she goes up to Virginia's room. She hides Virginia because she now hears that her dad is coming up the stairs, and she goes and hides in the adjoining room. However, that don't work. He comes in the room, immediately sees Virginia, and starts talking to her about, oh, you're alive, blah, blah, blah. And then, eventually tries to choke Virginia, but I think Kit had left that corkscrew that she tried to like stab Carter with earlier. She had left it nearby, and so Virginia grabs that with her mobile hand and she flings it, and it hits Patrick in the stomach. And as he's in pain, he tells Kit that he was the one who gave the mom the pills. However, he says that she took them willingly, and it was because she was in so much pain and he felt bad, and yada, yada, yada. And the reason that he couldn't speak to her afterwards, have a conversation with her afterwards, is because he felt so guilty, even more so when she was accused of then being the one to kill her own mother, which is like, yo, like, you're her father and you did this, and your daughter is under so much scrutiny, and you know that you did something. And sure, she was responsible by leaving it there, but it's like, this is your fault. And as her father, you just let her take the fall for that? Like, and this goes back to me saying Detective Vic is trash. I said it. I said he was a bad detective. It almost proved me wrong, because I was saying that, and then she said that she gave her mom the pills, or she left the pills there, but then you find out that she actually didn't do it. Her mom actually is the one who took it. Then you find out that the dad is the one that gave her the pills. I was like, oh my gosh, redemption. Detective is trash. Thank God. I knew I hated him. So as they are talking, Lenora comes inside, and she's like, oh, did you know, to Kit, like, did she know that Ricky was Virginia's baby daddy? And Lenora's like, no, I didn't. Well, she didn't. And she raises a shotgun at Ricky, and she's like, give me one reason why I shouldn't shoot you. And he's like, because my daughter is here and she shouldn't see this. However, they fight and they tussle and they push each other towards the grand stairs, where eventually, like, they both tumble down the stairs. Well, he doesn't tumble down the stairs. Lenora tumbles down the stairs. And then the house starts to tremble. Like, remember, this house was falling apart. Now it's trembling. Something about to happen. And so Kit, who I believe had followed Lenora downstairs to, I think, help her or something like that, she is like, oh my gosh, Virginia is still upstairs. And so she starts to run back up the stairs past her father, who was coming down the stairs. And he's like, where are you going? We gotta leave. She's like, no, I gotta get Virginia. And when he realizes, like, she's not gonna leave without Virginia, he decides to go help her, and they bring Virginia outside. And Kit is trying to get Lenora to leave, but she's like, I'm not leaving. And so her father, and Virginia get outside, and then Kit is like looking at her dad's wound, and she's like, are you okay? And he's like, pushes her hand gently away, and he's like, I am fine, it's okay. And he walks back to the house inside with Lenora, the two of them standing in the doorway, as the house just crumples around them and falls into the ocean. And I'm just like, I get the Lenora thing, but the him thing, him, like, I feel like he needs to be punished because you made your daughter suffer and you just get to go away like that. Come on now. I feel like that was very unfair. So we fast forward just a little bit into the future. Now Virginia is staying with Kit in her old home. Her bedroom is now, Kit's bedroom is now Virginia's bedroom. Kit didn't want to send her to a nursing home. She's like, Virginia's the closest thing I have to a mother or like, next of kin or our family because, her brother, her half brother is Virginia's son. So she takes care of Virginia with the help of Archie, who is now a chef at a hotel outside of town. And he comes by every night to chat up with Virginia and check on her and all of that. So it doesn't specifically say how long a time has passed that she's been living with Virginia in her house. However, she does talk about how, like, she becomes curious about who her half brother is. And without Virginia's knowledge, to not get her hopes up, her and Archie start doing some digging, but they don't find much. They only find that Miss Baker had got married somewhere in her 30s, I believe, or I think that's what it says. And, she moved to Canada, but there's no more information. So one day, Kit tells Lenora that she's going to go take a shower. And when tells Virginia that she's going to go take a shower. And when Kit comes back out of the shower, she sees that Virginia is gone. And there is a note that's left. And the note says, I'm going to read what the note says. At 69, Virginia Hope wrote her nurse this little note. Thank you, dear, for saving me. Now it's time to let you be. I take my leave, walking tall, knowing that I fooled them all. And so I read this and I'm like, oh snap. So Virginia can actually walk? Like, because I do know, like, at one point towards the end, before this part, she does find out that Virginia can actually speak and she wasn't mute. And, people kept calling the house trying to speak to Virginia, but I don't think they knew that she could actually speak, but maybe they suspected it because her and Virginia would be like, it's okay, it's our little secret. So I don't think anyone else knew that she could speak. Also, backtracking just a little bit, her and Carter haven't spoken since the stuff that happened at Hope's End. He arrived at Hope's End just after the house fell off the cliff, and she apologized to him, but he couldn't really, take the apology. And so he was just like, that's it, that's done, and they moved on. So they haven't spoken to each other. So yeah, so anyways, Virginia left her this note, and then in a letter in the mail, Virginia sends her a letter in the mail later on, talking about how she knows that Kit suspected her of being able to do more than she was capable of. She kind of explains to her that she wasn't really paralyzed at all, ever, but I guess everything she went through made her feel like that and made her not want to do anything. And so she kind of became immobile because of that. And so without Archie's knowledge, she started to try and force herself to be mobile, walking around and all that stuff, which is partially the reasons that Kit was hearing those floorboards creaking throughout the early mornings of the night, Then she also says that around the time that Mary was teaching her how to type on the typewriter, she received a Walkman as a gift. And Jessie, the young housemaid, would read stories aloud to her on the Walkman. However, that first reading stopped in the middle, and Jessie said something, and she said, I know you're not Lenora Hope. I know that you're actually Virginia, and I know that you did not kill your parents. And to be honest with you, they probably deserved it. More than likely, your father deserved it. And she's like, I think I know more of you than anyone else, probably. And she says that the only reason, and then she says that, and I'm your granddaughter. And so it's revealed that Jessie is her granddaughter, which I kind of suspected because I was like, Jessie has to do something with this. She can't just be some random character when everyone else has a part to play in this, right? And so through Jessie, Virginia finds out that her son's name was Marcel. And he, in fact, did grow up in a loving home with Miss Baker and her husband. She tells him about all the things that he loved to do and what he did throughout his life. And that sadly, he passed away from an illness in 1982. And this is after he had gotten married. I don't believe he had any children, but he did get married. And so when he died, this is when Miss Baker decided to tell Jessie the truth about everything that happened. And that's when Jessie decided that, I have to go and find out about this Virginia person and find her and, find out the truth for myself, which is why she ended up at Hope's End in the first place. And also the noises of the floorboards creaking weren't just Virginia walking around at night. It was actually Jessie who used to always come into her room, and they were trying to plan their escape together. However, those plans were derailed when Mary was murdered and when Kit came to Hope's End. So those plans were derailed. We also find out that the reason that Jessie left so suddenly is because she had to go back to Canada because Miss Baker had just passed away. And she says that Virginia says that the reason that she, Virginia, left Kit's house so suddenly is because, and left that note, is because that was the day that Jessie appeared at her window and told her, we have to go immediately. And so they left, and Jessie asks Virginia, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And ultimately, Virginia decides that she wants to go to Paris. And within this letter, Virginia actually left 2 tickets for both Kit and Archie to come and visit her, 2 round-trip tickets, which I thought that was so sweet. And I love the ending to that story. So when we get to the very, very ending, it's titled Miss Virginia Hope Dies at the Age of 101. And I'm going to read this little portion to y'all. So it says, Rome. Virginia Hope, the key figure in one of the most sensational crimes of the 20th century, died Monday at her villa in Porto Vergogna on Italy's Amalfi Coast. She was 101. Hope's alleged murder, alongside her well-heeled parents, Winston and Evangeline Hope, caused a stir in 1929 and shocking headlines 54 years later when it was revealed she was still alive and had been forced to assume the identity of her older sister, Lenora. Thought to be mute and paralyzed, Hope gained even greater notoriety when she admitted she had faked her condition for decades. Did I enact the greatest hoax of the century? She wrote in her best-selling memoir, Still Life. I don't think so, but I like to believe it's at least in the top 10. That blend of wit and braggadocio made her a beloved fixture on the talk show circuit, where viewers gobbled up the details of her tabloid-read story. When asked by David Letterman why she was so eager to talk after pretending she couldn't for decades, Hope replied, "Just making up for lost time, darling." When she wasn't enjoying her late-in-life celebrity, Hope spent her time traveling the globe, visiting all 7 continents, including Antarctica, where for a time she held the record for being the oldest woman to do so. Hope is survived by her granddaughter, Jessica Oxford, and her husband, Robert, her great-granddaughter, Mary Hope Oxford, and her devoted friend, caregiver, and traveling companion, Kittredge McDear. So I thought that was it was a great ending to the story. So just like I already kind of spoke about my qualms with the book already as I was speaking throughout the video. However, just really quickly, I realized that while I was looking for other people's reviews of this book, I really wanted to see if people felt the same way I did. And a lot of people didn't, which is killing me inside because I really wanted people to feel like, like the book. I wanted to see what other people thought of maybe some theories and stuff like that. However, a lot of people complained about the writing. They didn't like how many twists there were. They felt like a lot of the twists were kind of shoehorned in there. And while I could kind of understand where they were getting from, for me personally, I really enjoy theorizing about all of these people because really at the end of it all, everyone really did have a part in this thing, even though I did say earlier that, what did the couple thing between Archie and Ricardo didn't really need to be there, but when you think about it, it really did like play a part in certain suspicions, like, oh, he ran away, like, why did he run away, like, he must be suspicious of something, so everybody really did play a part here. The only person I would say didn't play too much of a part was the young guy, Kenny, who she was in like this sexual relationship with. That was really the only person. And I do feel like stories kind of have to always have like that one person who doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So that's not really a problem to me. But also, I feel as though like through my theorizing, I wasn't too far off from like the actual twist reveals. And so the fact that I wasn't doesn't make me feel like any of the twists were shoehorned in there. So I don't really agree with that. But again, everybody feels differently. Everybody enjoys different types of writing. So I would love to know, if you've read this book, what did you think about it? Were you right about theories? Were you wrong about theories? Were you close? Just what did you think about this review overall? If you haven't read the book, do you think you would like it, or did you not like it based on everything I told you? And yeah, comment down below any other suggestions of books that you would like me to talk about or review. Yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Bye.